All right, so for political theories, a couple things got to be aware of here. There are going to be three theories we need to look at in one definition. You can see the definition up top there: geopolitics, the study of the effects of geography on politics and the relationship between states. So basically, in the modern world, you're looking at, okay, how does location, how does international relations all factor into who has power in the world? So, three theories here, two of which are related. Let's start with the one that is not related. All right, so the one not related is the organic theory, Frederick Ratzel, German biologist. And basically, the theory is this: states are no different than a living organism. You need to feed them, and they need room to live. Who's a believer in this theory? Adolf Hitler. But basic, Lebensraum, basically the idea behind World War II. You have the Japanese trying to look for more land as well. So basically, the theory is pretty simple. All states are they're going to grow, and eventually they're going to sustain, and eventually at some point, conflict will erupt, and they're going to die off. When I saw this theory for the first time, it brought me back to my Chinese history stuff, where you're looking at the Mandate of Heaven. All the dynasties fell. And so it's an interesting concept to think about that if you think of states as an organism, they rise, they get bigger, they get nourished, they get fed, they sustain. Now, obviously, and then eventually they're going to fall. I mean, you think about, I mean, now no one said how long that's going to be, but it's an interesting theory to think about, one that really would be discussed further in a classroom setting, but you should know the basics of the theory. Now, the two interrelated are the Heartland theory and the Rhineland theory. So, the first one is by a British geographer, Sir Helfrid Mackinder, and he believed that land-based power was at the heartland, or the key, or I'm sorry, land-based power of the heartland was the key to dominate the world. So let's look at where this is. The heartland is up here, kind of eastern Europe and Ukraine specifically, and Western Russia is the heartland. Okay, and let me scroll up here so you can see the bottom of it here. Okay, so here's the heartland itself, and he looks at this world island that existed, and and that's what he called the world island. This Europe, Asia, and Africa. And then if you can control this area, you're going to control everything. Why? You're going to control the land bridge between the two. You couldn't attack it from the north. Second, this is a huge area of resources. Ukraine was a breadbasket for the Soviet Union of the time and is still a huge agriculture producer. Now, so that's one theory. But then the Rhineland theory comes about, which is later, and this was Nicholas Spikeman. And Nicholas Spikeman said, no. The way to control the world island isn't the land. It's actually key naval passages to keep that heartland so it can't grow any further. So what would Spikeman say? Spikeman would say it's basically the areas right around the Rhineland theory, or right around the Heartland theory, are the key. Now, let's look at the countries who are here. Basically, Western Germany, France, Britain, Norway, Turkey, China, Japan, India. You're looking at all places that were either part of the Western powers in the Cold War or non-aligned. Basically, I mean, when China obviously switched sides and was not aligned with the Soviet Union anymore, a substantial change. But you're also looking at places where conflict took place. Something we'll talk about later with batter belts. And what you're looking at here is the Rhineland basically put into play. What the Cold War was basically the Heartland theory with the Soviet Union playing against the Rhineland theory with NATO. And I don't need to go into how that ended. But again, Heartland theory, land-based power, control Eastern Europe, Russia versus the Rhineland theory. No, control those naval passages to keep the Heartland theory in check.